It was Christmas time in an orphanage in Denmark. There was a little new boy in the orphanage. He heard from other children tales about the wondrous Christmas tree that would appear in the hall on the Christmas Eve. They told him that scores of candles would light up the branches. They also told him about a mysterious benefactor who would make Christmas special every year. The mere thought of the splendor of the Christmas tree opened wide the eyes of the little boy. He had never seen a Christmas tree in his house. The only Christmas tree he had ever seen was through the fogged windows of other people's homes. The boys told him that many other joyful things would happen on Christmas Day. They told him that they would be served fragrant stew and crusty hot bread instead of their normal routine meal. The best of all for the boy was the last gift. The little boy learned that at the end of the meal, all of them would be given a special sweet orange. He would join the line of children to get his very own orange. The boy closed his eyes against the wonder of it all. A tree, candles, a filling meal, and a special orange for him. He had never tasted an orange in his life. He knew the smell, but only the smell of the orange. He had sniffed oranges at the merchant's stall in the marketplace. Once he had even managed to rub his finger over an orange skin. So tasting one was equal to heaven for this poor little boy. On Christmas Eve, the children were given all that they had been promised: the lamb stew, the yeast bread, scores of candles. The boy was amazed when at last each child was falling in line, claiming an orange and politely saying thank you. The line moved quickly, and now he was close to the beautiful Christmas tree and near the imposing headmaster who was distributing the oranges. But looking into his eyes, the headmaster said, "Too bad, little boy, too bad. I'm sorry we had taken the count before you arrived. It seems there are no more oranges. You will have one next year." Broken-hearted, the orphan ran up the stairs empty-handed. He fell on his bed to bury both his face and his tears beneath his pillow. But that was not the end of the story. The boy felt a gentle tap on his back. He tried to stop crying. The tap became more insistent, and he got up to see his friends trying to help him get up. He smelled it before he saw it. There was a cloth napkin on his mattress. In the napkin was a peeled orange, deliciously sweet. It was made of segments saved from many oranges, a slice donated from each child. Together they added up to make one whole, complete fruit. They shared their oranges for this little, poor orphan boy. And he had an orange of his very own. The orange was sweet, but he tasted it sweeter because it came out of an attitude of love and sharing from his little orphan friends. Christmas is all about sharing. Whoever has 2 tunics is to share with him who has none, and whoever has food is to do likewise. Once a family was going for the midnight mass. Little Johnny was given 2 beautiful balloons by his beloved dad as Christmas gift. He was delighted and carried the two balloons as he went to the church for the service. He loved his balloons and was excited to carry them to the church that night. As they were entering the church, they saw a poor boy crying. The mother of that boy was scolding the boy and was pulling him to the church. As soon as he saw Johnny with two balloons, the boy started crying louder. So Johnny decided to give his blue balloon to the little poor boy. The poor boy stopped crying for a moment and then looked at the yellow balloon and started crying again, pointing his fingers at the balloon in Johnny's hand. Having given out one of the two, Johnny took a few steps forward, trying to ignore the cry of the little boy. But the child began screaming helplessly. Johnny ran back and gave him also his yellow balloon. Having given away both his precious Christmas gifts, Johnny and his family participated in the midnight mass and went to visit the crib or the nativity scene afterwards. Looking into the crib, the family was surprised. Pointing to child Jesus, Johnny's mother told him, "Look, Johnny, don't you see the two balloons beside baby Jesus?" Johnny looked into the crib and found them both brightening the crib close to baby Jesus. He shouted with joy, "That is my gift for baby Jesus." Truly, his gift was received joyfully by baby Jesus on that midnight of Christmas. Christmas is a time of giving. There is more joy in giving than receiving. Jesus said, "Whatever you did to the least of my brothers, you did it for me." Once there was a very poor shoemaker. It was not his fault that he became so poor that he had nothing left. He had only enough leather for one pair of shoes. So he cut the leather that was available into the shape of the shoes. Then he left his work on the table to finish in the morning. As he lay on his bed, he prayed to God to help him. When he woke up in the morning, he found that the two shoes standing on the table were quite finished. He was surprised and did not know what to do about it. Taking the shoes in his hands, he looked at them closely. He found that they were so neatly made and that there was not one bad stitch in them. It looked like a masterpiece. Later, a customer came into the shop. He looked at the new shoes and he liked it so much. So he paid him more than the usual price. Now the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for 2 pairs of shoes. That night also, he cut the leather for 2 shoes and he went to bed praying. And the next morning he saw that the shoes were already made. He had customers that day also who wanted the shoes, and the shoemaker soon had enough to buy leather for 4 pairs of shoes. The same thing happened that night too. Next morning he found the 4 pairs of shoes already made. This went on. Any leather that he cut out in the evening was finished by the morning. Thus he was no longer poor, but he became quite rich. One evening, during Christmas time, after having finished cutting out the leather as usual, he said to his wife, "Let's stay up tonight to see who it is that lends us this helping hand." They agreed to the plan and lighted a candle and hid themselves in the corner of the room behind some clothes. As they watched, when it was midnight, they saw 2 little elves coming into the room. You know, elves are the supernatural creatures of the folk tales. They were without any clothes on, and they sat down and began to stitch, sew, and hammer so skillfully and so quickly with their little fingers. The shoemaker could not turn his eyes away for astonishment. They finished the work and ran quickly away. Since the little men have made them rich, the woman told the husband that they must really show that they were grateful for it. She said, "I will tell you what I will do. I will make them little shirts, coats, vests, and trousers, and knit both of them a pair of stockings. You make them two little pair of shoes." They agreed to the plan, and when everything was ready, they laid their presents all together on the table instead of the cutout work. Then they hid themselves to see what they would do. When it was midnight, they came bounding in, wanting to get to work at once. But when they found that there was no leather, they were a bit puzzled. But they were delighted to see the articles of clothing. They dressed themselves and began singing to themselves, "Now we are boys so fine to see. Why should we be longer cobblers?" They danced, moving, leaping, and skipping over chairs and benches, and went out of the doors. They did not return any more. But the shoemaker lived his life happily, having his business prospered. Christmas is also a time of thanksgiving, because God gave us everything in our nothingness. God so loved the world that He gave us His only Son. One of the beautiful things that decorates our homes and churches at Christmas is the Christmas tree. There is a beautiful story about the evergreen trees used for the Christmas tree. During winter, the birds would leave the cold areas and would move to the warmer areas. Once during such a winter, when the birds were all leaving for warmer areas, one little bird broke its wings on the way. And this little bird was left behind. Soon frost and snow started to fall, and it covered the forest. As she was cold and hungry, she asked the trees to help her. She asked different trees to let her stay in their branches. But not all the trees were kind. The birch tree was very beautiful and so very proud. So she did not accept to take care of this little bird. Instead, she said, "I cannot help you because I have to take care of the birds of this forest first." The strong oak tree was also reluctant. "I'm afraid that you will remain here till springtime and would eat up all my fruits." The willow tree was quite gentle, but she also refused to help or even talk to strangers. The poor little bird was struggling. It tried to fly some more, but her wing was still not fit for flying. The spruce tree saw this little bird struggling, and she offered her the thickest, softest, and warmest branch to stay. The bird was very glad. Inspired by the kindness of the spruce tree, the big and strong pine tree also volunteered to protect the little bird and the spruce tree from wind and snow all through the winter. There was also the juniper tree, which offered its berries to the little bird when it was hungry. So the bird lived comfortably there till its wings were healed, and it flew away again at springtime. The Frost King took note of the behavior of all the trees. As a reward, he instructed the north wind not to touch even a single leaf of spruce, pine, and juniper trees. The wind was allowed to play havoc with the leaves of other trees. The north wind enjoyed plucking the shining green leaves of the willow, oak, and birch trees. So they were left bare without leaves for the winter, with nothing to protect them from snow, rain, and sleet. The kindness of the spruce, the pine, and the juniper trees allowed them to keep their leaves always green, and they are known as evergreen trees. Mother Teresa said, "Kind words are short and easy to speak, but their echoes are endless. Let no one come to you without living better and happier. Be the living expression of God's kindness, kindness in your face, kindness in your eyes, kindness in your smile. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience." In a Sunday school, the children were performing a nativity play. They had prepared well the scenes till the birth of Jesus. When the scene was Joseph and Mary knocking on the door of the inn, Joseph asked, "Can you give us food and lodging for the night? Is there a place in the inn?" The little boy who was acting as the innkeeper was supposed to say, "There is no place in the inn." But the little boy was so much taken up by Joseph and Mary, and he answered, "Welcome, come in, come in. You shall have the best room in the house." Having deviated from the original script, Joseph had to improvise to save the situation. And he improvised the dialogue and actions. He walked into the inn, looked around, shook his head, and announced, "I am not taking my wife into a place like this. Come on, Mary, we will sleep in the stable." And the play moved on to the next scene, and that was in the stable where the birth of Jesus took place. Although what the boys performed was not what exactly happened at Christmas, this would be a beautiful insight on preparing for Christmas. Christmas is all about welcoming Jesus. Can we welcome Jesus with open arms like this little child? And when Jesus comes, will he find the place prepared and fitting, or will they have to look for another stable? "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and be with him and he with me." Many years ago, on one Christmas Eve, the houses were cleaned for Christmas, and the spiders were banished from their homes, and their webs were broken. Some of them just managed to survive and had to move to the farthest corner of the house for the time being. However, some of the young spiders longed to see the decorated Christmas trees, and they wanted to see the little Christ child who came to bless the homes in the midnight. The elders told them that they were not allowed inside the rooms, but the young spiders were quite curious and adamant. Finally, the oldest and wisest spider came up with a solution and suggested that in the night, when everybody went to bed, perhaps they could creep out of their corners and get a closer look of the magical Christmas tree. So when the house of a noble family was dark and silent, and everybody was fast asleep, spiders crept out of their hiding places and slowly reached the Christmas tree. They were so captivated by the beauty of the Christmas tree that they spent all night in the tree, crawling up and down and examining its beautiful ornaments. They could not curb their urge to weave pretty delicate spider webs all over the tree as they danced on its branches. In the wee hours of the morning, the little Christ child came to bless the house. He was surprised to find little spiders and their webs on the tree. Jesus knew that the mother of the house, who had worked hard all day to make everything clean and perfect, would be dismayed to find the spider webs on the tree. Thus, with a heart full of love, the Christ child gently touched the spider webs and set them sparkling and shining in silver and golden colors that made the Christmas tree look even more beautiful than before. It is said that this is how tinsel, the beautiful threads hanging on the Christmas tree, were introduced to decorate Christmas trees. Some people also hang a plastic spider in remembrance of the devoted little spiders who worked hard that Christmas Eve to see Jesus. Christmas becomes meaningful when we ardently desire to meet Jesus. Jesus is the reason for the season. As the deer that longs for streams of water, so I long for you, O God, my God. Jim and Della were happily married. There were two precious possessions about which the lovely couple both took mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch, which he loved so much. This watch had been his father's and his grandfather's precious possession. He always had a desire to have a golden chain for his watch instead of the old leather strap. But he did not have the required money to buy it. On the other hand, Della's precious possession was her beautiful long hair. She always admired her hair and took good care of it. Della always desired to possess a special ornamental comb that she found in a Broadway window, but it was too expensive for her to buy it. On a Christmas Eve, Della wanted to buy a special gift for Jim. She wanted to make Christmas special by buying for him the gift that he desired most: the golden chain for his golden watch. But she discovered that she did not have enough money to buy it. So she decides to sell her most precious possession, her beautiful hair. She visits the nearby shop of a hairdresser who buys Della's long hair for $20. Della then uses the money to buy a platinum pocket watch chain for Jim's golden watch. She paid $21 for the platinum pocket watch chain. She knew that it was a perfect gift for him because sometimes he looked painfully at his otherwise grand watch on account of the old leather strap that he used in place of a chain. When Jim comes home from work that evening, he stood still for a moment, having his eyes fixed upon Della and on her hair. And there was an expression in them that she could not read, and it terrified her. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor disapproval, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments that she had been prepared for. He simply stared at her fixedly with that peculiar expression on his face. "You have cut off your hair?" asked Jim laboriously. Della said, "I have cut it off and sold it." Jim drew a package from his overcoat pocket and threw it upon the table. It was the present that he had bought for Della. It was the ornamental combs that she had desired to have always. Jim gives Della her present, a set of ornamental combs, which now she will be unable to use until her hair grows back. They were expensive combs, she knew, and her heart had simply craved and yearned over them without the least hope of possessing them. And now they were hers. But the tresses that should have adorned the coveted ornaments were gone. Now Jim had not yet seen the beautiful present that Della had brought for him. She held it out to him eagerly upon her open palm. It was a golden chain for his gold watch. "Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks on it," she said. But instead of obeying, Jim fell on his couch, smiled and said, "Dell, let's put our Christmas presents away for a while. They are too nice to use just at present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy your combs." There was deep silence and a warm embrace. Although Jim and Della are left with gifts that they cannot use, they realize how far they are willing to go to show their love for each other and how priceless their love really is. The Magi, as you know, were wise men, wonderfully wise men who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. Here is the story of two foolish children who most unwisely sacrificed themselves to give gifts to the one they loved most. Of all who give and receive gifts, those who give up their best to give their best to the one they love are the wisest. They are the Magi. There is more joy in giving than receiving. Once there was a mean-spirited, miserly old man named Scrooge. On a Christmas Eve, he was sitting in his counting house. His clerk was shivering because he had refused to spend money on heating coals for the fire. Scrooge's nephew, Fred, comes to visit his uncle and invites him to his annual Christmas party. But he refused his invitation and considered it humbug to join the party and to wish him Merry Christmas. Two other gentlemen ask Scrooge for a contribution to their charity, and he treats them with bitterness and venom. When he was in his cold, dark apartment in the evening, the ghost of his dead partner Marley visits him. Marley shared with him his unfortunate story. He said that his spirit was wandering around the earth with heavy chains as a punishment for his greedy and self-serving life. He expressed a hope to save Scrooge. Scrooge falls into a deep sleep after this vision. As told by Marley, he then is visited by three spirits: the ghost of the Christmas past, the ghost of the Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas yet to come. The ghost of the Christmas past is a strange childlike phantom with a brightly glowing head. He takes him to Christmas in the past. He revisits his childhood school days, his apprenticeship with a jolly merchant, and his engagement with Belle, who leaves Scrooge because of his lust for money. This eclipses his ability to love. The ghost of the Christmas present is a giant who takes him through London to show him Christmas as it would happen that year. Scrooge watches the large, poor Cratchit family and their Christmas celebrations. He discovers Brock Cratchit's crippled son, Tiny Tim, a courageous boy whose kindness and humility warms his heart. Scrooge then finds the jovial Christmas gathering at his nephew's place. Toward the end of the day, the ghost shows Scrooge two starved children, ignorance and want, living under his coat and vanishes instantly. The ghost of Christmas yet to come leads Scrooge through a sequence of mysterious scenes relating to a man's recent death. He sees businessmen discussing about the dead man's riches, some thieves trading his personal effects, and a poor couple expressing relief at the death of their unforgiving creditor. The ghost reveals the dead man to be Scrooge. With this, Scrooge pleads the ghost to change his fate and promises to renounce insensitive, avaricious ways and to honor Christmas with all his heart, and he suddenly finds himself safely tucked in his bed. On Christmas Day, Scrooge rushes out into the street, hoping to share his newfound Christmas spirit. He sends a big Christmas turkey to the Cratchit house and attends Fred's party. He holds true to his promise and honors Christmas with all his heart. He treats Tiny Tim as if he were his own child, provides lavish gifts for the poor, and treats his fellow human beings with kindness, generosity, and warmth. Christmas is truly an invitation to leave our personal comfort zones and reach out to others with love, because love came down at Christmas. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. Nicholas was born to a wealthy Christian family in Myra, now located in modern Turkey. He was a man of good deeds. He was a very helpful person. When he became the bishop, he always wished to see his people satisfied and happy. He would always go out of his way to help them. He traveled day and night to ensure that his people were happy and safe. There was a poor man who had 3 daughters. The man was so poor that he did not have enough money for a dowry, so his daughters couldn't get married. A dowry is a sum of money paid to the bridegroom by the bride's parents on the wedding day. Nicholas came to know of their poverty and wanted to save them from going astray. One night, Nicholas secretly dropped a bag of gold down the chimney and into the house. This meant that the oldest daughter was then able to be married. The bag fell into a stocking that had been hung by the fire to dry. This was not the only time, but this was repeated again later with the second daughter. Finally, before the third daughter was married, the family was determined to discover the person who had given them money. The father secretly hid by the fire every evening until he caught Nicholas dropping in a bag of gold. Nicholas begged the man not to tell anyone what he had done, because he did not want to bring attention to himself. But soon the news got out, and he was known to be a person who gave secret gifts to those people in need. So from then onwards, when anyone received a secret gift, it was thought that it was from Nicholas. he continued to help people in need. Nicholas was exiled and later put in prison during the persecution of the Christians by the Emperor Diocletian. Because of his kindness, Nicholas was made a saint. Many countries, especially ones in Europe, celebrate St. Nicholas' Day on 6th December. In the Netherlands and some other European countries, children leave cloaks or shoes out on the 5th December on St. Nicholas' Eve to be filled with presents. They also believe that if they leave some hay and carrots in their shoes for his horse, they will be left some sweets. The name Santa Claus came from St. Nicholas' Dutch name, Sinterklaas. Santa Claus, the American version of St. Nicholas, originated from the legends of St. Nicholas. Santa is believed to travel across the globe with his 8 flying reindeers, including Rudolph, who is a red-nosed reindeer. In some parts of the world, children are given gifts only if they behave well throughout the year, or else Santa may just leave twigs in their shoes. This helps parents actually to keep their kids away from mischief. Santa's ritual of giving gifts throws light on his compassionate character. St. Nicholas is not only the saint of children, but also of sailors. One story tells of him helping some sailors that were caught in a bad storm off the coast of Turkey. The storm was raging around them, and all the men were terrified that their ship would sink beneath the giant waves. They prayed to St. Nicholas to help them. Suddenly, he was standing on the deck before them. He ordered the sea to be calm. The storm died away, and they were able to sail their ship safely to the port. Today, Santa Claus has become part and parcel of our Christmas celebrations. He signifies the virtue of being always ready to help people in need. And no matter what you call him, Santa is the love and compassion that Christmas stands for. Christmas brings us the good news of God's compassionate love through the incarnation of His Son Jesus. The Lord is compassion and love. He is Emmanuel. He is God with us. Robert May was a poor copywriter who was living in Chicago. He lived in a very simple 2-room apartment. His wife Evelyn was suffering from cancer and was bedridden for about 2 years. Most of his earnings and savings were spent for her treatment. On a December night, his 4-year-old daughter Barbara asked him, "Why isn't my mummy just like everybody else's mummy?" This question touched his heart. Memories of his early life flashed through his mind. All his life he had been different. He was weak and delicate as a child. He was then just a lowly copywriter as an adult. Now he was 33 years old and was already deep in debt. He was depressed and sad. However, he did not want the child to be discouraged. He made up a story to inspire his daughter to be optimistic. The story was about Rudolph the reindeer. Once there was a reindeer with the name Rudolph. Reindeers, also known as caribou, is a species of deer which are found in the Arctic, subarctic, and the mountainous regions of northern Europe, Siberia, and North America. Rudolph was the only reindeer in the world with a big shiny red nose. Everybody used to tease and make fun of this poor creature and call him Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. This embarrassed him greatly. He immersed himself in self-pity and felt quite lonely and depressed. On one Christmas Eve, Santa was getting ready for his annual trip around the world with his 8 handsome and busky reindeers. Dasher, Prancer, Dancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen. These 8 were considered to be the best among all reindeers. The entire reindeer community was assembled there to cheer them. But unfortunately, thick mist and fog surrounded the earth. Santa was wondering how could he distribute his toys in that fog and snow, as it would be difficult to find the chimneys. Suddenly, his eyes fell on the glowing, bright red nose of Rudolph, and he found a solution for his problem. He requested Rudolph to lead his sleigh. Rudolph guided Santa safely to every chimney that night, despite all the rain, fog, and snow. This brave act made Rudolph the most famous and beloved of all the reindeers. He became a great hero. The very red nose, which was a shame to him, became his most prized possession in the world. Barbara was so pleased with the story, and so Bob drafted it into a poem called Night Before Christmas. Evelyn died soon, but the poem became so popular, and Bob naturally became very rich. Thus Rudolph occupied a permanent place among Christmas legends. The story of Rudolph gives us the message that the baby Jesus loves us even in our vulnerabilities and transforms them into strengths. Santa loved Rudolph, the weakest of all reindeers, more than the strongest, fastest, and the most talented. Jesus was born for the poor, the lonely, and the depressed. The poor shepherds were the first ones to worship him. It is in my weakness that God's glory is revealed. At the birth of Jesus, the angels sang, "Glory to God in the highest, and peace to people of good will."
Silent night, holy